So welcome back. I hope you're doing well, drinking plenty of water. We have Jujutsu Kaisen Chapter 145. This, by all definition, is what I would call an info dump chapter. So as overwhelming as a lot of this stuff may be, and the fact that some of it is genuinely coming out of nowhere, it does a whole lot to build the groundwork for not only the Culling Game, but also the ending of Jujutsu Kaisen. It's very early, but it's laying out the foundation for it. This directly links to the Culling Game, so it's going to have the most primary effect and focus surrounding it. It even actually recontextualizes what the Culling Game purpose actually is. But it also links a lot of other things back full circle. So we head back 11 years to Gojo versus Toji even, and what that was indicative to, what that started. So already there's a lot of things mentioned. But finally, one of the biggest things that we actually get is a name for the main villain of the story currently. He's gone by Brain, Geto, Getu, Noritoshi Kamo, but now we have Kenjaku, which seems to be the name that probably going to be solidified the most. I wonder if Akutami actually knew that people didn't genuinely know what to call Noritoshi Kamo or Brain or Geto. Do you see the problem there? Like, as much as there is a lot of names to use, no one could really put their finger on what one fit best. So a lot of people either just went to Brain or Noritoshi. Kenjaku now puts him on a different pedestal and completely divides him from everyone else, which is very nice. Now, the name Kenjaku actually has a bit of meaning. It explains it not necessarily in the chapter, but on its text notes, it says something about where it comes from. And general consensus, it's directly related to a Buddhist deity. Not to mention the other name, because I actually give two variations for it. One's Kanon or Kwam Im, something to do with Buddhism, but not necessarily the same as the other name that they give, which is, and I apologize in advance for this pronunciation, but Amografasha, a Buddhist deity, and does actually get misrepresented or confused with the Kanon Kwam Im. This Amografasha, which means unfailing lasso, refers to an unfailing compassion like a lasso, which brings all sentient beings out of suffering and into a state of happiness, leading to enlightenment. Kind of ironic when you're thinking of Noritoshi or Kenjaku now, but they go to reiterate on it further, not his name specifically, but what he's trying to do, and it starts to make a lot more sense. It actually starts to paint a much bigger picture, and the plan itself directly involves Tengen. Tengen is the final point of contact, which is kind of the reason why he's scared. He may not seem like it throughout these past chapters, but just revealing himself to these people, he has a plan in mind to use some of them as a bodyguard to protect him, which you might think is a little bit weird because he's immortal. He can never actually die. What does he have to be scared of? But there is a lot more here. And when it comes to Kenjaku, what he's really good at, barrier techniques. But we'll explore that a little bit further later on. So first and foremost, when it comes to 11 years ago and bringing everything back to then, this was the time where Gojo fought Toji, but it was also the time where the Star Plasma Vessel took place, meaning this was the time Tengen was meant to join or merge with that Star Plasma Vessel. Now obviously he didn't, and since then there has not been another Star Plasma Vessel, so he's kind of changed and morphed over time. He equates it to evolving to this new state of being that he's becoming. He even calls it heaven and earth have become a part of him. So the body he has isn't necessarily physical. It's not his legitimate body. It's more so just a vessel, which is something I did bring forward when he was introduced, thinking it was a little bit weird that he would just appear with his true body. Turns out he doesn't actually have a true body. He is pretty much everywhere and nowhere at the same time. And because he's providing this information and is about to tell them how to unseal the prison realm, which is where Gojo resides, and about Kenjaku's intentions, what he plans to do, it comes at a bit of a cost. Nothing too crazy, but out of 3 very specific individuals that Tengen himself chooses, 2 of them have to stay behind and protect him. These 3 people are Yuta, Yuki, and Chozo. So already we have 3 of easily the biggest hitters within this upcoming Culling Games arc on a questionable line. Which ones are going to be taken out? So I think the most obvious answer for this is Yuta, which does actually end up being a thing. The 2 people staying behind is Chozo and Yuki. Chozo now has a reason to stay behind because his brothers are also there, and Yuki wants to talk to Master Tengen because they do have a bit of history. There's a bit of weirdness or tension, I should say, between them. As much as I would have loved to see Chozo within the Culling Games and just expand and grow into such a even more beautiful character than what he already is, he's staying behind, and I don't think we'll get to see all too much from him until Kenjaku actually goes for Tengen. It's most likely going to happen sometimes towards the end of the Culling Game. At least we have Yuta. I assume we're going to see a lot of massive things from him in terms of what he can do, how much he's grown and evolved, but also Rika. Would love to know more about her and how she's being utilized in a very specific way. So from here we get more specifics about Kenjaku's plan. We already know that he wants to force human evolution throughout Japan, but he's trying to do it in a very specific way. Making me ask, why didn't Kenjaku use Tengen's barrier to idle transfigure every Japanese into a sorcerer? Basically the same way that Kenjaku used Mahito's ability to transfigure a human into a sorcerer, like Megami's sister, for example. Megami's asking why he just didn't do that for everyone underneath Tengen's barrier. It simply puts it as there's not enough cursed energy. As powerful as Uzumaki is, it doesn't recycle back to the sorcerer. So in Tengen's words, it's inefficient to use cursed technique to evolve humans one at a time. So Kenjaku has a bigger plan. He wants to merge, very similar to the Star Plasma Vessel, with Master Tengen. And you're probably wondering, how is this even possible? I thought only the Star Plasma Vessels were the only things that could merge with Tengen. And you are absolutely correct. But over the 11 years that Tengen has been alive and aging without a Star Plasma Vessel, but because he's adapting and evolving to this new situation, he references himself as more so of being a curse, that his body structure and type and just in general, his core fabric or being is more closer to a curse now than a human, which means Kenjaku, Geto's body, being a curse manipulation user, we have an issue. So if Kenjaku can get to Master Tengen, there's a very high probability that he can use his curse technique to manipulate him, very similar to Mahito, because that is the closest composition that Tengen shares connection with, is a curse. The biggest issue that comes from all of this is the unpredictable nature that flows through it. If Kenjaku merges with Tengen, no one's really sure on what would actually happen. Tengen says that the person would surpass the normal definition of a sorcerer. They exist but also don't exist, a new form of existence. What's keeping Tengen in check for the most part is his barrier technique. It's the way he maintains his form and consciousness even after evolution. But if other people were to evolve and they go out of control, he says it would be the end of the earth. Because they lack the boundary of an individual, ill will spread in an instant. 100 million people's worth will pour into the world. So just imagine the event that took place within Shibuya, which engulfed the entirety of Tokyo. Now imagine that 100 million times worth from one individual if they were to go out of control. Not to mention multiple people that could try and merge with Tengen. And you have something that is catastrophic. You have something that is world-ending. An overflow of curses, an overflow of cursed energy, and all of it breaking barriers. Tengen's barrier would be completely obliterated, most likely within the same process. Okay, so now that we know this, we know what Kenjaku wants to do. We know he can actually use the cursed spirit manipulation technique on Master Tengen if he gets close enough. We now know why Tengen needs bodyguards to protect him just in case, and if Kenjaku does actually come in contact with Tengen, there's a very high chance that people could start losing control and the world will be engulfed in ill will. Pretty scary stuff. Now, with all of this groundwork laid out, it gives us a very clear understanding of where we go from here, how we play upon Kenjaku as a villain, what the Culling Games does, and how it potentially even leads to the finale of Jujutsu Kaisen, at least setting the very early foundation for it. However, now we bring it all the way full circle. We jump back to that Star Plasma Vessel days, the Goji vs Tojo days, the 11 years ago, where it all started. And fate is the word being described to bring all of this together, that all of these actions have consequences and have effects that cause actions. Tengen, the Star Plasma Vessel, and the Six Eyes are all connected by fate, but there is both some surprising reveals and unpredictable people within there. So with Tengen's explanation, in the past, Kenjaku was beaten twice by the sorcerers with Six Eyes. The second time, Kenjaku was fully prepared, killed the Six Eyes and the Star Plasma Vessel before they hit 1 month old. Quite sickening, to put it lightly. And yet on the day of the assimilation, which is when the Star Plasma Vessel merges with Tengen, both the Star Plasma and the Six Eyes still appeared. So Kenjaku knew that he had to change his strategy. So instead of killing, he moved to sealing, as there can't be two possessors of the Six Eyes at the same time. With this, we bring in the first curveball, the first unpredictable person, and that is Toji. Toji coming into the picture was someone that shouldn't have been here, because he's physically uniquely imbued and gifted with the heavily instruction, he is what is deemed a special case. He's completely freed himself of cursed energy. He is a human strong enough to escape his binding to fate, which has also destroyed their destiny. Tengen, the Six Eyes, and the Star Plasma. Not to mention the second curveball that comes in here is Geto, someone that can manipulate cursed spirits. All of these pieces have lined up perfectly for Kenjaku, yet he did not have the prison realm at that time. So this might sound like it's a lot, but this also helps give a little bit of reasoning to the Culling Game. So the Culling Game's purpose, now that Kenjaku found the prison realm, is to allow the merge with Tengen to be more successful, slowly bleed in the process of this incredible evolution process and become adjusted to it through the Culling Game. So for someone to merge with Tengen, if it's just a random individual, there's a high probability of them becoming an incomplete being. Obviously Kenjaku doesn't want this. Culling Game is a ritual using the cursed energies of the players and the boundaries connected between the barriers to take the humans of this country to Nirvana. To put super simply, Kenjaku is using the Culling Game and all the cursed energy within it and the evolution of it to prepare for the start of the merge with Tengen. It does come at some cost, however, Kenjaku most likely having to have some sort of binding vows on himself. So it turns out he cannot be the game master, which means that everyone now has a better chance to implement rules that can work within the Culling Game. Unfortunately, however, if they don't actually think of some sort of backwards breaking rule that could actually end the Culling Game, it seems like it won't end. There's a lot of insurances in play with a lot of these vows. Do not shut down the Culling Game till Kenjaku is finished. So the only way to theoretically stop the Culling Game as of this point right now is to either kill all the players or they all reject participation and then die. Until either of those points, the Culling Game won't end. Tengen even goes a step further in saying that even if you killed Kenjaku, the Culling Game won't end. That is how consistent these insurances are, and that is how consistent this binding vow is with Kenjaku not being the game master. It's a very big caveat for him because he could control and manipulate whatever he wanted if he was the game master, but because he's preparing to merge with all of this energy with Master Tengen, this is one of the sacrifices he has to make. There's always a give and take within these bindings, and this is one of them. So now that they actually have a bit of direction, and the only thing they can realistically go off is by adding rules to the game, which is getting Megami's sister and everyone else out that wants to leave and don't want to participate. They can add this rule alongside trying to release Gojo as well, which is where we split from the two individuals that are staying behind to protect Master Tengen, which is Chozo and Yuki, and then we find out about the back door of the prison realm. So this is where we bring in probably the most important piece of information. Even though all of this has been super vital to our understanding, it helps it tremendously. This stuff right here kind of gives you a better understanding on how Gojo could actually be freed. So there is a back door to prison realm, which is what Gojo is sealed in. However, you need the front door to use the back door. It's kind of a little bit odd that there's even a back door if you still have to use the front door, but it's more so a purpose of forcing your way in. So the only way you can force your way in is by using two very specific things: the inverted spear of heaven, which was Toji's weapon of choice, or the black rope, which was Miguel's, that scrambles and counters techniques. So basically you need something to completely nullify or void technique so they can force their way into the back door of the prison realm. This links Yuta to Miguel and Miguel to the overseas trip because they were looking for that black rope. But the very last thing, there is a sorcerer that is part of the Culling Game that comes from 1,000 years ago. She calls herself the Angel, and her technique is being able to terminate all techniques. Now mind you, that ability in itself is tremendously powerful. To be able to terminate all techniques I thought was unimaginable. Yet here we are, and we get the character design for her, which she looks stunning. There has been so much groundwork done within here that leads beautifully into the Culling Game, especially into the finale of Jujutsu Kaisen. You can slowly start to see the ending in sight, even though it is potentially still 2 to 3 years away. Regardless, I am extremely excited and eager to see how massive the Culling Game gets, especially with people that have very unique abilities and how powerful they can truly be. At this point, only time will tell. So with that being said, that is basically it. Let me know how you felt about the chapter. I know there was a lot of information here, but what was something that stuck out to you? Kenjaku, Culling Game, maybe the merging with Master Tengen, or maybe this angel who's known as Hana. I'd love to hear your thoughts. But I want to thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Drink plenty of water, and I will see you within the next one. Goodbye.